against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, our number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. We cover breaking news, culture, magic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most watched daily Bitcoin only live show on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. Today we're going to talk about Dave Portnoy and something that a lot of people, we all pay the price of tuition, right? The price of tuition is essentially, you get into the whole ecosystem, and it usually follows the same pattern, right? You get into crypto first, and then you kind of, burn your finger a little bit. Then you realize it's Bitcoin only. And then there's like this never ending rabbit hole of Bitcoin only and what the implications of a sound money standard and the separation of money and state and what that's going to do for the entire world. But there's like a process to that rabbit hole. And it's a multi-year process. It's not something that I've seen people do very quickly. Even the great Michael Saylor, he dismissed Bitcoin at first. We actually have the tweet for you guys. And this is something that we're starting to see a lot of very popular people that are outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber go through. And one of them lately is Dave Portnoy. And, he's the founder of Barstool Sports, very successful website, blog, whatever you want to call it. And he burned his finger on the stove. And before everyone makes fun of him and stuff, I'm sure you guys have done that before. I could have definitely had a lot more Bitcoin than I have today. But this is why we call it paying the price of tuition. You inevitably have to go through that. 99% of Bitcoiners that I've ever met started with altcoins. 99% of Bitcoiners that I've ever met spent Bitcoin and then they regretted doing it after, right? It's only until you hit yourself up metaphorically against the wall a couple times that you really, really learn this very difficult and expensive lesson. But the consequential aspect of what we're going to cover today is this is someone who's highly influential. Now, we're Simply Bitcoin. Connect the dots, ladies and gentlemen, right? You had Tim Pool say this, right? Max Kaiser did Satoshi's work, really gifting these people a lot of Bitcoin because they knew they were influential. He knew that they were influential in the early days. And then watching number go up to its thing. And then all of a sudden, these people are Bitcoin converts, right? And I think, Dave Portnoy is going through the motions just publicly. And he has a huge following. So, it's like anything he says Bitcoin related, it's like engagement farming. Every Bitcoiner is going to talk about it. It's like when Jack Dorsey wore the Satoshi shirt at the Super Bowl, right? So yeah, from a historical standpoint, the Overton window is shifting, the adoption, we're winning. It's good stuff. Everything's good for Bitcoin. And in other news, it seems like the central bankers have stepped up their mimetic warfare. They released a video, and it was very well produced. It was shot, and then, they got a younger person doing it. It wasn't Opti's ex-girlfriend. It wasn't Christine Lagarde for once, and they're basically talking about this digital euro and, how this digital euro is coming and how it's going to make everything great. And it's this big kumbaya utopia and digital euro this and digital euro that. So we're going to play you guys the video, and then we're going to talk about it and kind of break it down. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, this is information narrative trench warfare, right? You are literally on the side of fiat, the side of central bankers, the side of, basically using a money that steals from you, or you on side Bitcoin, right? I know it's a little bit obfuscated right now, but that's the future that we're heading into. So something to keep in mind. So we have that video for you guys as well. And we also have various guests. We have Jim today. Jim is a financial planner converted to a Bitcoiner. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, sir. That's how it went.
How did that happen? How does that happen? And hold on, I'm gonna spice it up. Doesn't Bitcoin kill your job essentially, a little bit?
I think it makes things a lot simpler in a lot of senses, which is great. I welcome that. That's great. And if it kills my job, I would love that because it's better for humanity.
That's very noble of you saying that. And forgive me if I'm being a little bit of a showman just to spice things up, but what I meant by that is, you know, if on a fiat standard, right, you're forced to invest just to keep your purchasing power, right? And then on a Bitcoin standard, you know, it's a lot easier. All you got to do is you buy Bitcoin, earn Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin, and then put that Bitcoin, you know, to the side, and then it goes up forever. And then that kind of causes this great definancialization of everything, right? I feel like the financial industry is a lot larger than it is because of fiat. Is that correct when I say that?
Yeah, that's a conversation I have regularly with clients, is helping them understand why it's important to own Bitcoin from a number go up perspective, but then also as a look, the other assets you own, if this does play out like I think it will demonetize your other assets. So we have to hold this thing for two reasons: making money, but also preserving what you already got.
And man, and what a great person to have on our side, man, for you to, you know, because you know that side of the world, you know how to speak, you know how to walk the walk, talk the talk, and you know how to communicate effectively to your clients, you know, the power of adding Bitcoin to your portfolio, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people are going to newly experienced with the release of the spot Bitcoin ETFs as well. So really exciting. I can't wait to talk about that during the culture and kind of further explore that and how you're really pitching your clients on Bitcoin. Like what is Bitcoin? How are they taking it? How are they seeing it? So I'm excited for that conversation. And of course, my legendary co-host, he has a straight face today, and that's because
I was smiling.
They've taken Christine Lagarde out of the memetics. They've gotten
wait, hold on.
They've taken Christine Lagarde out of the memetics. So Opti's upset. Opti's sad. I don't know.
I don't know. No, I'm not going to say that. You guys already know where my head's at. Anyways. Before we go on, Jim, what you just said, I can't wait to talk about this. You not only hold Bitcoin to preserve your purchasing power, but if Bitcoin goes where we go, it's going to demonetize every other. That's a bar right there. Anyways, I want to hit on one thing before I really talk about all Dave Portnoy stuff during the show. You know who I blame on this, Nico? I blame the Winklevis. Do you guys remember how they explained it to Dave Portnoy, and afterwards he was sitting there like, what the hell are these guys talking about? No wonder he bought tops and sold bottoms. They were like talking about the gold asteroids. Like, bro, you got way too abstract on them. Like, man. We should play that video. Anyway, let's get into the show. There's gonna be a good one.
I wish we had that video. Maybe you could find it.
Maybe I can find it real quick.
Maybe you can find it. But anyways, guys, let's jump into the show. We have a lot to talk about, but before we get into that, I do want to give a shout out to our flagship sponsor, and of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Buy real Bitcoin. Bitcoin Well is the self-custody Bitcoin platform on a mission to enable independence. It's a publicly traded company coming out of Canada, founded in 2013, and they're the first self-custody by default platform in the US. They recently expanded to all 50 states. They have free and automatic Bitcoin withdrawals, fast account verification, 1% fee, and nothing else. Guys, go check out Bitcoin Well. Support Bitcoin platforms that enable self-custody by default. So check out bitcoinwell.com today. All right, everybody, let's get to numbers. We have a lot to talk about.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You have no excuse. You could scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the Stampseed website where you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. Guys, store your generational wealth properly, and you could do that by getting yourself a Stampseed. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $51,030. Sats per dollar, 1,959. Block height, 831,281. Blocks to halving, 8,719. Halving estimate, April 19, 2024. Total Lightning Network capacity, 4,646 Bitcoin. Capacity value, 237 million US dollars. Realized monetary inflation, 1.74%. The total market capitalization of Bitcoin, it's sitting flat at 1 trillion US dollars. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.27%. Quick ETF update. We've been doing this on a daily basis just because of the amount of Bitcoin that BlackRock and Fidelity are stacking. So Fidelity's up from 83,000 yesterday to 86,000, and BlackRock looks like they bought another 4,000 Bitcoin. So obviously it shows that there's a tremendous amount of institutional interest, and that continues to accelerate, which is really exciting, especially with the halving around the corner. So this is the mimetic warfare that I'm talking about. This is the information narrative trench warfare, right? So our side, we have memes. Our side, we have content. We have the truth. We have incredible authors like Saifedean. We have brilliant minds like Lynn Alden, right? We have great podcasters. And, their side, they control the legacy media. Like, let's just be blunt. They really do, right? They attack Bitcoin and every opportunity they have, whether that's the New York Times, and all these legacy media publications, right? You can make an argument that they function as an arm of the state, right? And if you guys don't believe me, I highly recommend the Tucker interview that he did a couple days ago. I talked about it yesterday. But so information is really important, right? And, this Bitcoin revolution, this peaceful Bitcoin revolution, it's not a kinetic one. It's really about winning over the hearts and minds of people, waking people up to the evils of fiat money. And in the process of waking people up, Bitcoin will serve as a great unifier. It will bring, the quote unquote ideological left and ideological right together. I think a lot of the economic hardships, a lot of the anger that people are feeling, it really stems from broken money. I think the lower and middle classes that tend to be the younger generations that haven't had as much time to accumulate wealth are significantly poorer than their parents. They have less opportunity. And it's not because the world has gone backwards. Technology continues to accelerate. GDPs continue to grow. It's fiat money, right? If you earn in fiat, you don't have if you earn and save in fiat, which most people live paycheck to paycheck, you don't benefit from asset inflation, which is what happens when central banks print all this money. And here is central bank's mimetics, central bank's attempt to try to convince you that, hey guys, we're going to continue. The idea of central banking is going to continue, right? And they're using some of our tools, some of our tactics with media to try to convince you that, hey, this digital euro CBDCs are a great idea. So this is one of their latest videos that they dropped. Let's check it out.
How would a digital euro benefit payment service providers? A digital euro would boost European payment service providers like banks and bring them new business opportunities. Here's how. 1. Payment service providers would distribute a digital euro and be the main point of contact with the people and retailers who use it. 2. There would be fair compensation models for providers distributing a digital euro, as well as safeguards for financial stability, like digital euro holding limits. And 3. A digital euro would harmonize European standards, enabling payment service providers to expand their services across borders to cover the entire euro area. Overall, a digital euro would make our European payment system more competitive and innovative, preserving our strategic autonomy and reducing our dependence on non-European providers.
That's a whole lot of bullshit. Look, let's talk about the production for a little bit, because the production was on point, right? She's moving, right? You know, she's laying it out, the mannerisms, the music in the background, right? The captions up on screen, right? Clearly, you know, that type of media is very effective. But, you know, I heard like a bunch of like nonsense. Just, you know, harmonize the European Union, make payment systems more efficient. But you know, she said something about limits as well, which I thought, as well as safeguards for financial stability, like digital euro holding limits, like that, like why? Like that's not something that you put a happy song to the background. It's like, oh, we're gonna harmonize with these holding limits. Like that doesn't sound so harmonious to me. And something that I find funny too is, you know, when you have the truth on your side, you can kind of be funny and you can have, you know, these like, you know, shorts or, you know, vertical video style content. And you don't really have to complicate it. Like it could be very straight up and like easy, straightforward, like get yourself one Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin or slavery, you know, don't use the money that doesn't steal from you. Look at the mental gymnastics they have to go through to try to convince you that their money is better than yours. Like they use like harmonious, like I like that shit's scary. Like when a central banker is talking to me about harmony and at the same time, like a couple sentences before saying how there's going to be holding limits on my money, like bro, like that doesn't sound very harmonious to me. That sounds like some dystopian ass shit, bro. Just because you try to put makeup on a pig by putting happy music in the background doesn't change the message. So, I mean, look, I think that's an epic fail. Like if they're trying to connect with the younger community, like that's not the way that you do it. You know, way too like overly complex. But I think, and I'm going to pass this on to you, Jim. I feel like a lot of the complicated language in TradFi, or maybe not coming out of TradFi, but coming out of central bankers specifically, is by design. I feel like they have to overcomplicate it in a way so that people don't really wake up to the scam of fiat money. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, it's like that for money, for investments, for basically everything around. I don't know, in the money system, we overcomplicate things, probably to make, you know, to maybe help our egos, make us feel like we're smarter than we are, and also to be a gatekeeper from other people being able to do this on their own. If we use big words, you know, if we call it equities instead of stocks, or, you know, simple things like that. If we talk about, I don't know, things that are unnecessary, suddenly we feel like we're the protectors and other people have to grovel at our feet to get help, versus just making it super simple, where other people can grasp this. Now, it's a whole nother level with the digital euros and all those things. They mince words to try to make it sound like it's sort of like Bitcoin, but it strips out all the evil things of Bitcoin. Like, oh, Bitcoin's for money laundering and, you know, supporting human trafficking. But our digital euros like that, but you're protected by the government with this. Ironically, though, you know, a CBDC is basically it couldn't be more antithetical to Bitcoin itself. But we mince these things. We think it's digital and Bitcoin's digital. Therefore, that's something I'm asked about regularly with clients is, well, what happens when a digital dollar comes in? That will remove the need for Bitcoin, but it's unpacking actually what are these things in a very simple basis. And if you can't explain something in a simple terms, that probably shows that you don't understand it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good point, and I really appreciate your perspective, Jim. Someone with your background, you know, kind of approaching it, and the way that I would also say it too is that you always hear this, and obviously the narrative is in Europe as well, which is the necessity of digital euros is because we're trying to make payments more efficient and et cetera, et cetera. But like I don't know about you, but like the U.S., like we have Apple Pay, PayPal, Zelle, Cash App, Venmo. And they all work really well, right? Like they don't, you know, I don't see a necessity as to why the government has to get involved in the payment systems. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm just, Bitcoin brute, but like my common sense is like, why is this necessary? So what's your take?
It's because they can't address the thing that actually needs to be fixed, which is a fixed supply cap. They can't come out and say, hey, this is actually broken because we keep making more of it. They can say, oh, it's broken because now you can spend it from a digital wallet that we'll give to you. And oh, we'll have these things that will make it easier for us to give you universal basic income payments, things like that. They cannot address the base root problem there. Otherwise, all of a sudden you're, think they're like the Wizard of Oz. They go in, they think it's some really smart, big wizard, and it turns out it's just some feeble old man behind a curtain. And right now, people are starting to peek behind that curtain. And Bitcoiners, we're sitting here trying to rip the curtain open and show people, look, it's a fraud. It's all a show. And again, they're all they can do is puppeteer the things that they think will satisfy the need for change, when the whole root cause of this is easy manipulation. And ironically enough, when this is fully digitized, the manipulation will be all the easier through, like they said, is limited how long you can hold these, how much you can hold, spending limits. Oh yeah, also if you use too many carbon credits or you're buying too much red meat, we're gonna penalize you there as well. So under the guise of simplifying and making it more free, will backdoor so many more ways for them to manipulate and control you.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with that. And it's just insincere. Like, it's insincere. Like, no matter how much, makeup or you try to dress it up behind, clever media and whatever, like, you look at that and you're like, first of all, I don't know what the F she's saying about harmonious stuff. Like, Bitcoin is a lot more harmonious than whatever the F she's offering. Opti, I mean, like, clearly they've realized that the Christine Lagarde shorts were not working. So, I mean, I guess you could say this is a step in the right direction.
It's always better to get a younger version of the old version, right? So newer version of the old version. Anyways,
Bitcoin does not agree with this message. This is 100% Opti.
Sorry, dude. You troll me, I troll the world. Anyways, let's get back to something. I really want to touch on something that Jim just said, because I couldn't agree more. And I don't have Jim's background, but I learned through like the traditional financial world through a Bitcoin lens. And it absolutely amazes me just how complicated things are on purpose in traditional financial world, so that you have to go to a financial planner. Whereas like once you look through the world through the Bitcoin lens, you're like, why is this stuff so complicated? It doesn't have to be this complicated. You just want to save in something that cannot be debased. Like, it's super simple. Anyways, this is all by design, but let's talk about this video. Guys, I say it all the time. It's our meme world, and this is Bitstein. It's our meme world, and everyone else is just living in it. As you can tell, the battlefield is memetics. This is a war on information, a narrative control. What do you always say, Nico? Narrative trench warfare or whatever. I forget what the meme is, but you can tell.
Narrative trench warfare. If tweets are bullets, memes are.
Yeah, it's the first part. It's the first part. Thank you. You can tell though that the powers that be, they understand that they have to, for lack of better terms, like manipulate consensus and I guess manipulate public opinion. And so they got to throw this content out there. And because of course, if they can gaslight the population, they will gaslight you, and they will, instill and incept ideas into you. And you think you're educated, and in reality, you're kind of like running off a cliff. And let's just talk about some of the things she said. Nico brought up one of them, harmonized payment device providers or payment solution providers or whatever. It's like, what are you even talking about? The second one was like the blatant pinpointing of centralizing the control of money, like the CBDC or the digital euro is the main contact with money, and we are basically like the middleman. You're gonna have to come to us and trust us. We're the experts here. We can control money. We know what we're doing. We've been doing it for 100 years. Like, trust us, bro. We're gonna be your main contact point to money. And it's just like, what? Like, Bitcoin fixes this. Like, Bitcoin is already cross-border payments. There's no middleman. There is no one that can stop you sending Bitcoin across the world. Like, we already have this solution. It is Bitcoin. And again, it is very interesting. And Jim hit the nail on the head when he said, it's super interesting to me that they always frame this as, improving digital payments, when in reality, like Jim said, it's like they can't actually pinpoint the problem. And it's the fact that they are just continuously expanding the money supply. And that's the main problem. The money is broken, and Bitcoin fixes this. And this is just why we constantly come out here and be like, guys, they're distracting you. They're putting the light on the wrong conversation. It's not about digital payments. It's about fiscal sustainability. It's about stop printing more money, stop expanding the money supply and making us all poorer, stop stealing from us, basically. And then the last thing I want to touch on is just how stale that short is. Like Nico said, it had good production quality, and I agree. They got a newer, younger version of Christine Lagarde. She's talking, she's got an accent. The production quality is pretty good. They got the subtitles. Like, they're playing the YouTube social media game. But it's something we always say as Bitcoin memers, as people in the narrative trench warfare, is like the reason that Bitcoin content and the memes are so humorous and they hit so well and they have that emotional content to them is because we have the truth on our side. And yes, I know sometimes you got to get the cringe out when you make content. So I'm not really hating on her so much on like it being cringy or whatever. It's more just the fact that like you can tell that there's a disconnect between what she's saying and what's actually the truth of the matter, or rather, maybe the objective truth. And I think and maybe it's just because I make content and I can just tell, and I really don't know how like the avid population.
You're a professional propagandist, and you're looking at central bank propaganda. And what you're saying is this propaganda is trash. Like, if we were to rate that,
it just doesn't have truth.
It's just bad. No, but that's the common denominator.
Yeah,
like, that's
exactly.
what makes memes funny. Like, this is what you have to understand, guys. Memes, like, and people treat it as a joke. Like, right? Like memes, like, okay, it's a joke. I get that. But memes only operate if there's a common denominator, and that common denominator is truth, right? If you don't have truth in a meme, you don't understand it unless you're propaganda. Like, unless you're like fully believed in the cult of that specific meme, you don't understand it. Like, it doesn't hit, right? Memes are funny because it's like the truth is there and everyone's like, oh, that's hilarious, But everyone's seen like the Star Wars movie and the Anakin and Padme, whatever, like the Matrix movie. So it's like they're so ingrained in culture that if you try to like insert like whatever she's saying into a meme, you'll be like, that makes no sense. Like, what is she talking about? This is absurd, right? So, but yeah, they're gonna have to play on they're gonna have to play. We have home field advantage, and they're gonna have to play on our field, right? And this is an attempt to that, right? And you're seeing this. Elizabeth Warren's making shorts at this point, right? So, anyways, guys, let's move on to news. We have a lot to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. Ladies and gentlemen, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You want to get yourself your own hardware wallet. Remember, not your keys, not your cheese. If you're not taking self-custody, you're trusting someone else, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to find yourself in a 6102 type situation a couple years from now. Bitcoin University made a video about Coinbase and 6102 yesterday, and everyone was giving them so much shit for it. They're like, Coinbase will never do that because Coinbase is the custodian of all the ETFs. Guys, take a look at history, right? Like, look, if you have the tools and you have the ability to self-custody your money, you couldn't do that effectively before, right? Let's just be blunt, especially trying to travel. Try to travel with $100,000 worth of cash, or $100,000 worth of gold, go through an airport. Let me know how that goes, right? You might get lucky or you might not. And if you don't, they're just going to take it, right? So try doing that with 12 words in your head, right? It changes the conversation a little bit, right? So you have no excuse as to why you shouldn't be taking custody of your wealth at this point, especially if you have the tools to do so. And when I saw him getting so much S yesterday for dropping that video and people getting like hurt, essentially saying they would never do, it's like wake the F up, right? There's a historical example, even with all the constitutional protections in the United States, of the US government making it illegal for US citizens to hold a medal because the US government got itself in a pickle, right? So I mean, like, what's the saying? If you don't learn from the past, you're destined to repeat it. Like, wake the F up, bro. Like, I'm sorry if I don't trust Coinbase. And let me rephrase this. I'm sorry if I don't trust someone else holding my money, right? Let's just be blunt, okay? All right, so let's talk about Dave Portnoy. But before we do that, because I saw a lot of people essing on him, right? We have to remember that everyone pays a price of tuition. That includes the Chad. That includes me. That includes Opti. And I'm pretty sure that includes Jim. 99% of people that I've ever interviewed, and I've pretty much interviewed everyone in the industry except for Sailor, it's always the same, right? First couple of years, you don't know what you're doing. You're kind of blind. You're making a ton of mistakes. Then you learn. And then it's Bitcoin only. And then you're like, yeah, like altcoins are like literally a scam, right? And then you like come to the realization like, holy crap, fiat is an altcoin. Like, and you're like, oh my God, it's Bitcoiner slavery, right? You just go down the rabbit hole, right? But before you do that, there is a couple years of learning. This was 2013. Michael Saylor was a billionaire back then. He could have bought in millions of Bitcoin back in 2013 for the price of what he's paying for right now. And he's acknowledged that. This is a tweet from December 18th, 2013. He says, hashtag Bitcoin's days are numbered. It seems like just a matter of time before it suffers the same fate as online gambling. Now, I've heard this. Like, I've dedicated my life to making Bitcoin content and orange pilling people. The only person I haven't been successful with is a high school friend of mine who currently works at Goldman Sachs. But as soon as the ETF got approved, I'm like, hey, you work for Bitcoin now. How do you feel? And he said, F you. But that's the only person I haven't successfully orange pilled. Every single other person, the reason that they've been orange pilled is because of number go up. Like, number go up is like sticker shock. It's like, it shakes you into reality and you're like, holy crap, this thing is real. When something goes from $100 or $200 and then someone told you to like buy it at $100 or $200 or $500 or $1,000 and it's sitting at 51,000, that hurts your soul. That like goes inside and you're like, ow, I am wounded right now. That sucked ass. And then you learn from your mistakes, right? And this is what I call the price of tuition. Everyone pays it. It took me at least a year and a half, 2 years to fully appreciate Bitcoin. I got in through mining, so I had a better appreciation of the infrastructure that mines Bitcoin. So I always kind of knew it was unique, but still, regardless, I burnt my finger on the stove. I know Opti did. I don't know about Jim, but I'm pretty sure, just because 99% of people go through this process, right? So this brings me to Dave Portnoy, right? Opti, what do you think would be better for the show? Should we play the Winklevi video first or this first?
No, play this and then we'll play. Yeah.
Okay. So, this is February 16, 2024. And Dave Portnoy said, I realized myself on Bitcoin. And why? Well, he's a very wealthy man, extremely successful, right? Barstool Sports. He literally grew that, spent a decade, like just hustling, building that up, he has a lot of money, right? And what better place to park if you have a high net worth, at least a percentage of your net worth into Bitcoin. And this is the realization that he's come through. But a couple things, ladies and gentlemen, not only do you have to pay the price of tuition, you have to be okay with what Michael Saylor says right here. And it's a very tough pill to swallow. Everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve, right? Here's Phil Geiger from Unchained. The best time to buy Bitcoin was 15 years ago. The second best time to buy Bitcoin is every day starting today, right? So this goes to anybody who's newly subscribed to Simply, a new watcher or listener. Like, you are going to feel this way 10 years from now if you don't act on today, right? If I would have told you the price of Bitcoin was 51,000 10 years ago, you would have laughed me out of the effing room. There's that famous video of Andreas Antonopoulos giving a speech to a Bitcoin conference. There's no one in the room, and the price of Bitcoin was $100, right? So when this thing's sitting at a couple $1 million per coin 10, 15 years from now, you're going to be like, bro, remember when it was 51,000? Like, it's inevitable, right? So anyways, Dave Portnoy is paying the price of tuition, and I think most importantly, he learned. Anyways, let's check it out.
Holy shit. I fucked myself so hard. Bitcoin's at 52,000. God damn, I fucked myself with Bitcoin. God damn, I fucked myself with Bitcoin. It's just one of those things that I just fucked myself with. I'll never get over what I've done with Bitcoin. Just a total debacle. I have fucked myself so hard with Bitcoin. Barstool should have owned Bitcoin. The second I got Barstool back, I should have bought like 10 million of Barstool of Bitcoin. I'm so mad at myself about Bitcoin. I should be up like 75% in Bitcoin. I should be up 750 grand in Bitcoin instead of down. Fuck Dave.
So again, takes a little bit of humility. Here's Bitcoin news. It looks like they made a short out of the original kind of interview.
Now this is him with Jack Mallers, I believe,
Yeah,
and he's reflecting on the Winklevi video. I didn't find the Winklevi one, but you guys can find it on. Just play it.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, what happened? It was COVID times. Didn't know what the fuck Bitcoin was. I was in the Hamptons. Just so happened the Winklevoss twins were like staying a door down from me. I had bought Bitcoin. It was 11,000. They heard I bought it. They're like, let us explain it to you. They came over to my apartment and they explained Bitcoin. It was fucking cockamamie. What they explained to me was like Elon Musk was going to fly to outer space and mine Bitcoin from the sky, or gold from the sky, and it's going to rain plentiful. And I'm like, are you guys fucking serious? And like, yeah, it was, the video's out there.
Yeah, it's like gold's from ash.
Yeah, I'm like, this is fucking crazy.
It's like gold's not
the second they left, I was like, sell. Like, because I'm like, these fuckers, I don't want no part. I don't know what they just said, but I want no part of it. Within 2 days is when Bitcoin went on the run. It went from like 11 of 20 to 30 to 40 to 50.
Yeah, you got killed.
Yeah. Bitcoin, what happened?
Okay, all right. Hold on. Let's reel it back in. Jim, as a financial planner, how do you avoid a situation like this? What my interpretation is, basically they just went way too like this is, I know what happened. I already can tell what happened in that conversation. It was like, listen, absolute scarcity. There's only 21 million. Oh, what about gold? Well, you don't know how much gold's in the ground. There's asteroids with a bunch of gold in them. And he was like, holy fuck, what is going on? And he got nervous and he sold. Like, that's what happened. But Jim, how do you avoid this, especially for the older generation, which tends to have all the money, the boomer generation, right? How do you explain Bitcoin in a way where it doesn't intimidate them?
Fortunately, I'm not super smart, so I have to understand things at first principles and keep things simple. So I do the same for everyone else I talk with. So I don't try to get way out there and start getting all goofy with these things. I make it simple. I root them in education. Education builds conviction, and conviction builds strong hands. So I make sure they're educated, and they're educated in what is important. So for all my clients, we currently have about 77 clients. Of that, about 70 of them came to us without Bitcoin at all, or knowing about it or anything. And I don't lead with that. I've taken a lot of heat from Twitter for not having Bitcoin on like my financial planning website. It's like, oh, you call yourself Bitcoiner, but you don't advertise it. So, well, look, I'm trying to help your parents and your grandparents. And yeah, if I were to lead with Bitcoin, I wouldn't be able to get them in. So I make sure we meet multiple times. I build a financial plan. I present value, and I show them not a moron by showing other things I can bring value through, like tax planning and estate planning and those sorts of things. Once I've established credibility and value, then I say, hey, let's talk about your investments. And you should know something. I'm sort of crazy. Just be aware of that. But tell me what you've heard about Bitcoin, because I own Bitcoin and pretty much all of our clients own it as well. So we start there. And I ask them first just to get off their chest what they know about Bitcoin. If they have some sort of argument in the back of their head, it doesn't matter what I present. I can present the best, well-articulated argument for Bitcoin. But if they're thinking it's going to boil the oceans, they won't hear a single thing I have to say. They'll be ready, waiting for me to stop long enough for them to spew that out. So I let them get everything off their chest first. And then we address those lightly, or I can set that aside and say, okay, we're going to talk through that in a moment. But let's just start off with like why Bitcoin makes sense. And we cannot understand Bitcoin until we start with addressing the problem that Bitcoin set out to solve. So then I take them through a quick lesson on stores of value and forms of money. We go from way back when all the way through the 1970s. And then we go into cryptography and people trying to create digital money. And then we arrive at Bitcoin. So once we've got there, then we talk through actually applying Bitcoin to a financial plan. And it's that base level of education. It works every time. So yeah, all of our clients own Bitcoin. We have a very high adoption rate. Like right now, our average client has a very high allocation of their total investable assets to Bitcoin. I think most people would call it irresponsibly allocated. But most of my clients will start off and they'll throw in like, all right, let's start off with 10 to 20% total allocation. And then after that conversation, and I'll say, hey, look, that was great. Let's start off here. I'm going to send you a few more resources. I'll send them a couple of podcasts. Maybe I'll send them a copy of a book. And then without doubt, they'll follow up with me a couple months later. It's like, hey, Jim, can we go ahead and increase the allocation a little bit more? And that happens every time. Last night, I had 8 meetings yesterday. I've lost my voice almost because I talked with a bunch of people. And most of those, we bumped their Bitcoin allocation up another 15, 20% of their total portfolio. So yeah, it's rooted in education, and we keep it simple. Actually, I have Legos in my hand. I'm in my office. I have a bunch of young kids, and I just found Legos in my office. I guess one of them stuck them in here, and it sort of got me thinking, like, if I'm going to teach my kids about Legos and building things, I'm not going to explain like how plastic's made and like, oh, the shape of this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, look, here's how it works. We can put them together. And if we have a good foundation, we can build a taller tower. Here's the basic principles of why this is important. That will allow them to start building and learn and grow versus trying to make things overly complex, like, oh, you're mining asteroids and hash rate and all that stuff. Like normal people don't care about hash rate way up front. They don't care about the coding of Bitcoin generally. They need to understand that to have security, but they want to know, why is this important to me right now? So we start off with general education, allow that to then build conviction, and then that conviction to actually allow them to have strong hands. I had a lot of clients who had Bitcoin at 69,000 and wrote it down to 16,000. And amazingly enough, during that ride down, I had 0 clients reach out to me and say, hey, Jim, let's go ahead and get out, please. A lot of them reached out and said, hey, Jim, let's go ahead and add to the allocation. February of last year, we do all of our annual reviews for clients in February. February of last year, we're doing our annual reviews. I was like, hey, guys, right now we're at, it's called a 20% allocation. We want to go ahead and put our foot on the gas and increase this pretty heavily. And I didn't get any pushback. And the only reason we were able to do that was because we had that conviction that was, again, built in education. Super simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Orange pill your friends. Make it simple. Don't talk to them about the things that excite you about Bitcoin. Talk to them about the easy things. They have to understand the history. If we do not address the proper questions, we will not arrive at the proper answer. If we're talking about DeFi and whatever blockchains, it's easy to arrive at altcoins. Like, oh, well, this thing that's built on a blockchain will have a better return. It's like, well, I think you're trying to answer the question that Bitcoin did not set out to solve. What was that question? And if we ask the right question and you think things through logically, you should arrive at the right answer.
Beautiful, beautiful. Guys, there's 400 people watching across all platforms. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos, really helps push our message forward. Now, going back to Jim's point, was beautifully articulated. That was very well explained. I completely agree. But I did learn this lesson the hard way many times. Yes, it's definitely a good idea to, and I love the way that you approach it, right? Establish that relation first, establish that trust, and then, kind of bring it up and say, hey, have you heard of this Bitcoin thing? But just to, you gave us a little bit of a insight into, your clients and how bullish they are into this, man, that is really good to hear, that people are seeking, basically an alternative asset, right? Michael Saylor called it a new asset class. But that is very, that's how we win. Like, that's how we mint new Bitcoiners, because people aren't going to, vote against the thing that, is in their portfolio, right? It's just the reality, right? Like, if, they pass like an anti type of Bitcoin law, and that might hurt a lot of people, a lot of people aren't going to be happy if it hurts their bottom line, right? So, and I think this is why Elizabeth Warren's so terrified. She was so terrified of the ETFs for that reason. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this before we move on to the culture?
Yeah, first and foremost, I kind of want to jump on what Jim was saying as well. Like, I've matured in my orange pilling journey. I used to go just like full Charlie Day, connecting all the dots, ranting, like saying what Jim's saying, what's most exciting to me and the things that I love. And over the years, I had to kind of like pull back and try to be as objective as possible and reflect and realize that sometimes, I do go overboard and I did sound crazy. And at the time, you're just so excited. You're just like blurting out too much stuff, just a bunch of verbal diarrhea. And, so I don't really blame the Winkle vibe, because I think we've all done it at a point. Like I realize, I know for a fact that I've done it. And it's just, I don't really want to laugh. I don't like laughing at people that make mistakes, but it is kind of hilarious, how Dave, like that video, he's like, man, I just, I wrecked myself. And it's just hilarious. That video is hilarious in itself. But I do respect Dave Portnoy. Like, he's a great entrepreneur, built a media empire. He's hilarious. The pizza reviews are hilarious. Like, I think he's a good dude. And it really just goes to show a theme that we've been talking about here a lot on Simply Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin is saturating popular culture. But even he himself said, like, he wrecked himself trading Bitcoin, just tried to overtrade, bought it at a good time, sold it too fast, missed the run, probably bought the tops and sold the bottoms. I think a lot of people have caught themselves in that same vicious cycle. And you can kind of tell for a moment there. I don't know if you guys followed the Dave Portnoy Bitcoin saga, but there was a moment there where he kind of was just like sunk cost fallacy. He's just like, man, I just got so wrecked. I missed the whole pump of Bitcoin. And now he's kind of getting back in at a pretty good time. And so I think he will be a good advocate for Bitcoin, but he does have that like Davey day trader persona. So maybe he's going to wreck himself again and try to overtrade Bitcoin. But it just goes to show what we tell most people here. The best conservative advice is just buy Bitcoin, take it into cold storage, hodl it through the ups and downs, because you never know where the top is and you never know where the bottom is. Yes, everyone thinks they can be a professional trader. Yes, everyone thinks they can outtrade the market. But in reality, just buy Bitcoin for the long term. I even had a friend call me. He's like, you think Bitcoin's going up? I'm like, me, I always think Bitcoin is going up. But like the conservative trade, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, man, I was trading stocks and I got absolutely decimated. I'm like, okay, like settle down. Like the conservative trade is just buy Bitcoin long term. He's like, yeah, I've changed. I'm reformed. I'm trying to be as conservative as possible. I'm like, all right, just buy Bitcoin long term. And he even did like, well, what about all these altcoins? I'm like, again, like the conservative view here is just buy Bitcoin, hodl it for the long term, and just hodl that Bitcoin. It's super simple, but I think we kind of get caught up in the whole TradFi view of like the status quo of overcomplicating your investments, because you're always looking for the new hot thing. But Bitcoin being for lack of a better term, just like a boring monetary network that just increases in value over time. The more capital you put in, the more of your labor and energy you put in, and you store it in Bitcoin, the better off you will be in the future. And I think even Dave is probably coming to the point that all of us Bitcoiners have gotten to. Well, most of us Bitcoiners have come to at a certain point. that Bitcoin humbles you. You realize you don't know as much as you do, or you realize you don't know as much as you think you do. And you just sit back, you're like, man, if I just didn't out trade myself in that position, I would be in a good position right now. And it just goes to show, guys, just don't complicate this. Just stack in Bitcoin. Go live your life. What did I used to say? Save in Bitcoin, stay solvent. Just a little bit, and go live your life. Like, Bitcoin will be here for you when you need it. And that's the beauty of it. And again, just doubling down, like, this is another example of Bitcoin spreading through popular culture. Yes, I know most Bitcoiners view themselves as individuals, critical thinkers. And so, like, we don't care who the new talking head is about Bitcoin. We try not to endorse, like, celebrities and heroes in Bitcoin. But this is good for Bitcoin because for better or worse, people do listen to people like Dave Portnoy, like celebrities, like the talking heads and influencers. And the more people talk about Bitcoin, the more people will have those touches of Bitcoin and realize, oh, wait, Bitcoin didn't die. Like, oh, wait, Bitcoin may be a good long-term investment. But Nico, did you catch that little bit there where he was saying, man, Barstool should have just put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. So when I got that money, it's like, remember what we always say, the Michael Saylor meme of, like, he has been vindicated. And now every corporation around the world is looking at that and being like, wow, maybe I just put a little Bitcoin on my company balance sheet and it will blow up my earnings and my savings, and I'll be able to weather the storm moving forward. So even Dave Portnoy, and the chat's excuse me, not liking Portnoy too much. Hold on. I'm choking over here. But he is starting to see the game. It's like, maybe I just add Bitcoin to my company balance sheet and this is going to improve. I don't have to overtrade this. I don't need crazy complicated financial products. Pause. And just hold Bitcoin. But we're going to see more and more examples of this. And again, kudos to Dave Portnoy for being humble enough to just like put it all out there and document his journey and be like, yeah, man, I got absolutely wrecked, but like, I'm getting back in the market. Like, that does take some balls, because most people try to hide their shame. And he's like, this is who I am. I absolutely wrecked myself and I'm just going to hodl some Bitcoin. So hopefully he's learning and he's going to hodl some Bitcoin and just be a full adamant Bitcoiner. I would love to see it. So, be nicer to people out there, I guess. Maybe is the final message. We don't know everything.
Dude, I mean, it's not only just like be nicer. It's that like dude or dudette, you probably went through this shit too. Okay. Like I haven't met, like, it's like extremely rare for me to meet a Bitcoiner. And I've been at this for a pretty long time. Like literally like 1/3 of my life. That hasn't paid the price of tuition, that hasn't fucked up, I've heard horror stories of people selling their Bitcoin, to buy shit, and that Bitcoin was like a couple $100, right? It's like, it's like you hear that over and over and over again. It's only through pain that you learn not to do those things again. So at least he has the humility to acknowledge that and see it, but let's see if he actually takes action and, stack some sats. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Bitcoin Evangelism. Guys, we would not be here without our sponsors and, of course, our audience as well. So I do want to give a shout out to a Bitcoin Evangelism, Planting Seeds for the Decentralized Revolution. This is a book by Brian DeMint. It's an absolute beast of a resource for orange pilling, no coiners, and altcoiners alike. We have 10 million people to orange pill. This is a book for Bitcoiners who know Bitcoin but have a hard time explaining it to their friends. It's a book for Bitcoiners who are trying to explain Bitcoin only to altcoiners. It's available on Amazon right now. You can scan the QR code on your screen. It will take you directly to Amazon where you can get yourself a copy of Bitcoin Evangelism, Planting Seeds for the Decentralized Revolution. All right, everybody, let's get to the culture.
The Daily Culture.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to give a shout out to Rex. They are the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. So if you're taking a look at trying to get your first Bitcoin mining ASICs, the guys over at Kaboom Racks have your back. You could check out their marketplace by scanning the QR code on your screen or checking the link in the video description. That will take you directly to their inventory on Telegram, and you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them, access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with them. Guys, what are you waiting for? Start your Bitcoin mining utopia today. Check out Kaboom Racks. Check out their racks, Kaboom Racks. All right, Opti. I'm gonna hijack this for a sec because I got some questions.
Go for it.
Questions. For
Wait.
Jim.
Before you go,
questions for
hold
Jim,
on, Nico.
bro.
Before you go, I just wanna like set the context here, and do the tee up. Like, Jim, how did you come to Bitcoin? And then Nico, you can hijack.
Short story made long. No, I don't do that. I was introduced to Bitcoin in 2012. A guy I worked with in Colorado asked our boss to pay us in Bitcoin like every week, and the guy was always stoned though, so I didn't put much weight in what he was saying. So yeah, just dismissed it. And then I started getting into it like late 2015, early 2016. Thought it was really interesting when Preston Pish and Stig on the Investors Podcast started talking about it more as a speculative curiosity. So that piqued my interest, but again, sort of started dabbling in it, but not in a serious level. And then, yeah, it was when COVID happened. So when the lockdowns took place, March 2020, I quickly started thinking, at that point, I've been working in finance for several years. And I was thinking, man, like if we can start printing money out of nowhere at this rate, something is massively broken. And I need to find something that's a hard asset that will fix this system. So I started looking deeply into gold and Bitcoin. And after, I don't know, a few days of nonstop reading, came to the conclusion that I need to just go ahead and drop full in Bitcoin. So yeah, it's March 2020. I moved all of our personal assets into Bitcoin, and just went from there. And yeah, I ended up leaving a firm that I was at. I felt weird having all my personal assets in Bitcoin, yet not allowed to talk about it with clients. So left there in 2021, started my own firm, and now it's part of my job as orange pilling clients.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
I'm hijacking. Okay. So let's talk about the kind of the over financialization, like, and the whole aspect of it, right? Like if you take a look at financial planning and the whole, like these giant wealth management banks, and the reason that they exist really is just, if you're trying to grow your wealth, right, you take more risk. But preserving your wealth is also a strategy, especially if you're getting older, right? And you're forced to be an investor, like, which is the craziest part. Like, Bitcoiners fundamentally understand that. But the idea that you have to invest just to maintain your purchasing power, just to maintain your wealth, is absolutely absurd to me, right? I think Bitcoin changes that conversation. So from someone who's a financial planner, like, how do you come to terms with that? Like, how do you come to terms with the fact that, or do you still think that there is going to be a level of expertise even with Bitcoin in the conversation?
So two things there. One, you have to invest. That's something I've been telling people for a long time. Like, people don't like to take risks with their money, but people who say, I want something that I don't like taking risks, therefore I want to sit in cash, helping them understand that everything you do with your money is some sort of risk or another. So that's really important. You're just taking different types of risks. As far as my job with Bitcoin, I don't think Bitcoin will make me unnecessary. And if you think that all I do is manage investments, you don't understand my job. So that doesn't worry me by any means. I think this industry will always be around. Now, I hope that a lot of the things that I do will no longer be necessary. Like, I used to hate this, especially a few years ago when interest rates were still low on houses. And like where I live in Texas, my house appreciated, aka the dollar depreciated by like 33% in, was it 2021? So those conversations were terrible. Like, hey, Jim, we want to buy a house in the next 1 to 2 years. What should we do with this chunk of change that we're sitting on right now? The options, I mean, there's unlimited, but the general options were, do you keep it in cash and risk that you are being outpaced by house value by 33% per year? Do you go throw it in a bond and risk that the government's going to go ahead and start raising interest rates and your bond value is going to get destroyed? Do you throw it in stocks and hope the stock market doesn't get trashed? Because I mean, that's dependent on a few centralized mechanisms as well. That should not be a necessary conversation. If we had a healthy form of money, it'd be like, look, just save it in money. Money should preserve value, purchasing power. Now, where I live, yes, the population is growing steadily, but our house shouldn't have gone up by 33%. So it's like, all right, if we think that our town is going to grow by 7% this year, then in theory, houses should go up by around 7%. So we just need to know that you'll have X plus 7% next year, and you should be good. I hope those conversations are no longer necessary eventually. But yeah, it will certainly not necessitate my job in its entirety. But to whatever level it does, I welcome it.
And let's talk about that, right? So what aspects of your job do you feel like you still are going to be able to provide value to people? You're still going to say, hey, listen, this is where I could help you. This is where I can, help you with your portfolio, your net worth. What aspects of your job do you see, remaining no matter what?
Lots. I don't want this to sound like it's a commercial for my business by any means, but like what I do is help people align their money with what's important to them. Mm-hmm. So even if you have all the money in the world, most people are not actually utilizing it for what is actually important to them in life. I've worked with a lot of really wealthy people who are very dissatisfied at the end of the day. And it's because they realize, man, my kids are grown. And when I was younger, I said that I wanted to make money so I could actually spend a lot of time with my kids and make memories with them. And we're sitting in my office and we're talking through their money. And then I ask, hey, you said you wanted to have this money so you can spend time with your kids and they can have a great childhood. How was that? I've had countless people break down in tears in my office at that moment, realizing, I don't know. I spent too much time working that I never actually got to have that time with them. That's killer. And if it's Bitcoin or fiat, they're still at risk of doing that. So reminding people to align their money with what they value. So that will always be a job. One day, I think it's sort of funny. Like right now, like I do spend Bitcoin. I love Ben Justman, his wine. I regularly buy his wine with Bitcoin. But a lot of Bitcoiners do not separate with their Bitcoin. And I think that could be a bad marketing pitch of like, I will never sell my Bitcoin, because then people who don't understand Bitcoin will think, well, and how will it ever be used as money? So we need to be better with our words there. One day, everyone will part with their Bitcoin. It's just for what can you purchase with it? So another job is, if Bitcoin is actual day-to-day money, then people will want to part with that to buy other investments. That will one day happen again when other assets are repriced at a better level. So helping people understand what makes sense from a risk-adjusted perspective to sell their Bitcoin for to buy another asset. So there's that. There's so much tax planning. Even in Bitcoin right now, there's tons of tax planning. I think that will always remain in Bitcoin, and then with other assets. There's estate planning. There's a million things. So, I mean, everything I do, like I live anywhere and everywhere that your life and your money meet. That doesn't just mean investments or money itself. It's that culmination of everything in life. Like money is just a tool to help you do what's important to you in life. And my job is to help you articulate what that is and then align your resource with that, from your money, your time, your relationships, your business. So yeah, I'll always have a job.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. I got you. Now I'm understanding. So you enable, you help people to live the life they want to live based on like the resources and the net worth they have. And Bitcoin is one of the tools that you use to enable that, but also, real estate or also alternative investments as well. Is that safe to say? Is that good to say?
Yeah, I'm really good at making bad analogies. So here's one. Like, yes, it's a really bad one. So let's say you're a surgeon, and then a new tool comes out that allows you to do open heart surgery in a better, quicker, safer manner. That doesn't mean the surgeon's no longer necessary. It just means that I have this tool that will make our job so much better and will make the outcome so much better for you as the patient. That's sort of like Bitcoin. I have like so many clients. It's sort of a joke now. They come to me, hey Jim, we want to go ahead and do this. What do you think? And it's like, what do you think I'm going to say? And because they know the chances are I'm probably going to say something about Bitcoin. We have to run it through, even if the answer is not Bitcoin, we have to run it through that lens and check it against that opportunity cost. But that still does not obfuscate my role in the same way that a phenomenal tool does not obfuscate the role of the surgeon, because Bitcoin is simply a tool to be used wisely in the hands of the practitioner.
Absolutely. Very
Love
interesting. Very interesting. So, Jim, let me ask you something. So the allocations have changed, right? You know, a lot of people were looking into.
Wait, Nico. This is not financial advice for the audience, but
all the disclosures.
Yeah, all the disclosures.
No, we have that in our disclaimer in every single video.
I know. I just feel like maybe you should say that. But anyways, keep going.
No. Let's talk about no. I'm really curious about like the kind of because Bitcoin changes the allocations, the portfolio setup, and all that stuff, right? So in your mind, what is the right allocation to Bitcoin in a conservative portfolio? Let me pitch you an age, right? Let's say this person is a 60-year-old person. They're going to retire. They don't want to take the risk. Let's say they don't want to deal with the volatility. There's something about Bitcoin that a lot of Bitcoiners like. We're not all psychopaths that are willing to endure 80% downturns. Like that could affect a lot of people's lives, right? So if you're younger and you want to ape in, okay. But if you're 60 and you want you want something a little bit more reliable, perhaps 100% Bitcoin allocation isn't for you, right? So what would your suggestion be to someone like that? 50, 60 years old. They're thinking about retirement. They want stability. What advice would you give them?
All right, I'll paint you a few scenarios. So we'll start off with someone who's not that age. So for me, I'm 34. 100% of my liquid net worth is in Bitcoin besides a US dollar emergency fund, but I'm weird. Like I recognize that. I tell my clients that. I'm very open. I forget that it's weird to talk about money because that's what I do for a living. So I'm very open and candid with my personal financial life. Especially they share everything with me. Might as well, undress for them too. I know the comments are going to run with that. Gosh. So that's how I work. But then again, I own a few businesses, and my businesses I'm making sure are being built as assets. So I have this odd barbell strategy. Like I think that one day my financial planning company will sell for somewhere between 20 and 30 million. And my goal is to be able to do that in 11 years. So yes, my liquid net worth is going to Bitcoin and some publicly traded Bitcoin related companies. But I have this other thing that I'm building as well. So I recognize that if you work a W-2 job and you don't have this other asset, then maybe you shouldn't do what I'm doing. Now someone who's 60. Okay. Well, this is really important as well. It's not necessarily your age that's important. Age can be indicative of your time horizon of the use of assets. But if you're 20, years old and you're going to need this money in 6 months to purchase a house, you probably also shouldn't have that in Bitcoin. I know like Bitcoiners might hate that statement, but you're running a risk of Bitcoin going from 50 to 40 or 50 to 60. Is it worth that gamble? So you have to consider not just your age, but actually the time horizon for you specifically, because we have to think through sequence of return risks. That's the returns and when those returns will coincide with your distribution times. So I'm dancing around the answer. Now, this isn't financial investment advice, all those fun things. I would say on average, our client and that demographic, yes, I agree with that comment. I think that not owning any Bitcoin is outrageously risky. And even if you're 95 years old, I actually took some heat from this. I take a lot of heat in my industry. I did a podcast with Blue Collar Bitcoin a few years ago, and they titled it the Black Sheep of Financial Planning. And that remains true to this day. I quarterly post on a financial planning forum about Bitcoin, and then I get like 100 and something comments calling me a moron. And I do look like a moron for like 2.5, 3 years, every 4 years. But for 1 year, I look like I'm way smarter than I am. So it's fun. Anyways, let's see. Okay, allocations. In general, that demographic, we're like 20 to 35%. I do have some clients who are right at retirement age who are like 50% in Bitcoin and Bitcoin related companies or ETFs, stuff like that. So that's really high, but you have to consider other things. For instance, I have a client there in their mid 60s. They currently are at 50% total allocation, but they'll receive some inheritance probably in the next few years that will be in the tune of a couple of $1 million. So how I came to this conclusion, we were at a 30% allocation. Then I was notified that, hey, actually, my dad, it was for them, their dad, who's probably going to pass away in the next 2 or so years. We know that they have a life insurance policy that is equivalent to half of their total investable assets right now. So if we take a life insurance policy, it's in a term policy that's paid out in USD. So that's sort of like having a 50% total portfolio allocation in cash. So if we were sitting on half cash right now, so half of their total portfolio is literally in cash, we would account for that with how we currently allocate. So we went ahead and we adjusted for that and bumped their allocation to Bitcoin to 50% of their current investable assets, which would arrive us at a 25% allocation. In reality, is that still, I mean, again, most financial planners would say you should own none. 99 of those who say you should will tell you to own 3%, basically to pacify you. So you'll stop asking them about it. So that allocation is nuts. And you have to make sure they're educated. Again, I use illustration of anything investment wise. If you do not understand what you're buying and the volatility of it, and I make sure they understand there's not volatility and risks are not equivalent. There's high correlation at times, but they're not the same. But we talk through, your ability to weather volatile times. We talk through risk tolerance and risk capacity. Those are two very different things. You have to recognize what those differences are. But with risk tolerance, we talk through look, if you want to buy this thing, you have to understand if you're going to sell this because it drops, that's like going to Six Flags, seeing other people getting on a big roller coaster. You don't like roller coasters, but you're doing it because you feel like it's what you have to do. And the moment you go over a big flip and you're upside down, you realize, gosh, this freaks me out. You're going to take your seatbelt off. You're killing yourself. So I try to front run any argument they're going to have. I front run. There will be times that this is scary to hold if you do not understand it. So that doesn't matter the age. You can be 20 and freak out because we're pretty emotional. That was answers to questions you didn't ask. I'm sorry.
No, dude, that was a phenomenal answer. That was a great answer, dude. That was really on point. I could tell that you spend a lot of time honing in your craft, and it's really badass that we have a Bitcoiner inside the wire of the financial planners, right? We have a someone said in the chat, we have a psychopath, and that's really awesome that you're transparent about your own holdings, right? Because it's really easy to talk a big game without skin in the game, right? When you have skin in the game, it's a totally different conversation. And what I've noticed too, it's like, Nico, what do you do? I'm like, bro, I'm like 120%. and they're like, oh, okay, like he must be onto something. So yeah, I mean, that's very, that's really cool, man. And I love how you take a individual approach to every single person. And this leads me to your website, which I think perfectly describes exactly what you just said, which is financial planning for families desiring early financial independence. And you have this beautiful picture of your family, and I find that extremely wholesome. So guys, check out International Living FP to find out more about Jim.
Intentional living, Nico. Nico can't read. Sorry, Jim.
Sorry, guys. Intentional living. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than international, right? Sorry, bro. It's all together. All the text is together. But Jim, this is first of all extremely wholesome. And thank you so much for dropping your knowledge today on us.
Wait, Nico, before we go,
I'm not wrapping up. I still have more questions. And thank you for putting up with the savage chat of Bitcoiners who are just, they tend to all ape in. But this is a good conversation, and people like yourself are extremely important because we need more financial planners that are Bitcoiners. We need more financial planners that are putting their stamp of approval on this asset and really making it kosher, so to speak, in the eyes of, let's say this is a traditional person. They'd never really understand or got exposure to Bitcoin. And you're essentially, you're the person that they can depend on, the person they could trust. So I really enjoy that and really like that. Anyways, Opti, you said you want to say something.
Yeah. I just kind of would like to pick Jim's brain a little bit. Like, what's the normal conversation you have with your client, and like, what's their common objections, or rather, maybe like, what's the 2-minute elevator pitch? Like, how do you pitch this to people so that I know it probably isn't just 2 minutes, but like, what's the common objections, and what's like maybe the common questions you're asked?
Again, I start off with letting them get all of their objections out. Typically, it's why Bitcoin, not other cryptocurrencies? What if it's made illegal by the government? What if it's just like tulips or Beanie Babies? Yeah, those. And again, the nice thing is those are all rooted in misunderstandings. And we've come across those questions a million times. So those are easy to overcome simply through education. So again, anyone out there who's trying to get to orange pill someone, I have a insanely high track record of people adopting this. Now, given those people who hire me because they already think I'm smart and already place a level of trust in me. But even people who, off the street, we talk about Bitcoin, I have a really high orange pilling rate. And I think it's because allowing them to feel heard and get their arguments off their chest first. Otherwise, they will not hear anything you say. There's a guy, his name's Chris Voss. He wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. It's about negotiations. And that's a big point. You have to let them get off their chest first. So start with that. Don't talk over their heads. Keep it simple. And again, it comes down to addressing what Bitcoin set out to solve. And you cannot get there if you're talking about asteroids and again, you're talking through like, oh, the hash rate's all-time high and the blockchain does this, because then they're going into blockchains and asteroids and hash rates versus a money that cannot be controlled, that can't be manipulated, and can't be printed by anyone else. That is the conversation you have to have. And again, that has to be rooted. If you root that in history, that way they can see a pattern that goes back centuries. That will put a standard there for what money should be, what stores of value are, and it makes it then seem like, oh, this is something some tech bro thought of in his basement one day and it's going to disappear. Like, no, this is rooted in millennia. Yeah, I think that pacifies a lot of the fears as well, is knowing that this is something new just popped up.
Absolutely. Man.
Love it. Love it.
Beautiful.
Wait, Nico, again, I know I feel the show's going long. We want to make it palatable for people, but Jim, what would be your last 2 sats of advice for the audience out there? What's the last message you want to leave with our viewers?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I guess even if it's Bitcoin or fiat or whatever, like, just really do consider what's important to you, and don't stop at goals. That's what a lot of people set goals, which are really important, but don't stop there. Ask yourself, why do I have these goals? What is informing those? And continue to peel the layers back as far as you can. And once you've peeled those layers back, you'll actually be at a place of not goals, but values. So start with building up from your values, allow that to then inform your goals, understanding that when you look at those values and goals, you will be faced with decisions. There's opportunity costs in everything. Sometimes the opportunity costs, like selling some sats. It's like last year, we spent a good amount of money to go on a great vacation. And I was like, you know what? The reason I want to have, or one of the reasons I want to have wealth for our family is so I can make memories as a family. And I could have all the Bitcoin I want in the world. But if I am not spending time with my kids while they're young, the time they want to sit down and, cuddle with me and read a book with them at night and explore with dad, like, what was the point anyways? So allow that to be rooted in your values. If you start off with goals, you might miss the mark. So values, then goals, then the decisions that will come, the opportunity costs that you will face. Once you've thought through those things, then you can begin taking action. And if you've thought through those well enough, the action you take will be able to be direct and intentional, and you'll be able to make them without wasting too many resources, too much time, too much money, too many relationships, because you can be articulate and you can be direct with where you're actually going.
Beautiful.
Love it. Actually, Nico, one last question, and this is more of a joke. Jim, I saw your Twitter, and it seems to me that you are also a 58K gang member. So do you want to do you want to acknowledge this?
Yeah, I'd like to think they would accept me. Maybe I am just from the outside looking in, but if they'll have me, I would be glad to join the gang.
Meme gang initiation soon. All right, here you go.
Very cool. Guys, if you want to find out more about Jim, you want to schedule a call with him, and you could also, there's a number also, you check out 830-624-5311. You can also schedule an appointment on his website. Go to intentional living.
And he's got a podcast. He's got a podcast.
And he's got a podcast as well, right? But he's a Bitcoin psychopath inside the financial planning aspect, which is awesome. We have more Bitcoiners coming on our side. Jim, it was a pleasure for you to come on the show today, and I appreciate you surviving this Bitcoin maxi show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas.
Appreciate you, it. All right, guys, if you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. But the number one thing you could do to help push the peaceful Bitcoin revolution is share this content. In fact, share all content. Share music. We have to take over the culture, hearts and minds. That's how we do it. Love you all, guys. We'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.